Okay, so Mr. Liggett just went over the front side of the sketching activity with you. And you've drawn horizontal lines, practiced some lettering, done some 45-degree angles, symmetry, circles, three-dimension. We're ready now to start the back side of this piece of paper. And when we do the back side, and I'm just going to grab a different sheet here. When we do the back side, this time we're not going to put a border on it. We're just going to break this into 4 boxes. Just 4 boxes. We want 4 nice boxes on here. And there are different ways to do this. Mr. Liggett may have shown you one way. I'm going to show you another way. But like I said, there's multiple ways to do the same activity. So the first thing that I want to do is find center of this workspace right here. So with a nice sharp pencil, I'm going to estimate corner to corner a very light, what we're going to call a construction line. And I'm going to do the same thing right here so that I get an X approximately in the middle. I'm then going to take this and kind of find the center here, trying to get these 2 sides the same. And when I look at that, I can tell that it's not exactly even. So I'm going to adjust this little mark until both sides are even. I'm going to do the same thing here. Again, it's a sketch. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we want to kind of make it look neat and as accurate as we can get it. I now have 3 spots on this piece of paper, and I'm just going to connect them. So I'm going to draw a horizontal line, sketching line, missed the X a little, but that's okay. I'm more interested in just trying to get this as even as possible. Okay? And the next thing I'm going to do is I want to break this box into fourths. So I'm going to try to come with a line across. So when I look at this, I'm going to estimate where the halfway point would be and where the halfway point would be on this side. And once I'm kind of happy with it, I'm going to take this and sketch this. And I'm actually going to try to look at the top edge of the piece of paper as I sketch. I'm going to look at my boxes, and they're not perfect, but they're okay. They'll work for what we want to do. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually darken these lines in, changing them from a construction line to more of a visible line. Just kind of clean things up a little bit. And this one, I feel like it could be moved over a little bit. So I'm just going to take this. It's not a big deal to erase it, especially when you draw it lightly. And I'm just going to come over a little bit more. So that I have 4 boxes, and they're not bad. Okay, I'm now going to take each one of these boxes and break it into 4 boxes, because we're going to have one drawing in here, a drawing here, here, and here. So we're going to have 4 separate drawings. So again, easiest way to find center is corner to corner. I'm going to estimate that. And I'm going to take this now, and I'm going to sketch it across. That and all the way across this way. That's one section. I'm going to do the same thing here. Estimate corner to corner, really light. I can carry this line right over. I'm looking at the top edge of the piece of paper to try to keep it parallel. And then I want to find center going this way. And then again over here, corner to corner, estimating. And I'm going to bring this line right down. You may want to just carry that line all the way down when you draw it the first time. So again, different ways to do it. I like kind of working with this smaller section. And this one, let me try. I'll just carry it right over. and I'll carry this right across. So there, didn't even find center on this one. Don't get real sketchy, just kind of. So now I have these 4, 8, 12, 16 little squares on my paper. I'm going to kind of clean up that little X I just drew. Okay. And now there's going to be, like I said, one drawing going here. Well, what you need to do in the upper right-hand corner of each of these 4 main quadrants is you need to sketch a 45-degree angle in this box. This is a reflection line, and you actually practiced this on the drawing when you were working here. So if you look, you can see this is a perfect 45. Mr. Liggett did a really nice job. You can see it's kind of half of 90. If you put the other half on there, you would have a perfect square. So what we're going to do is, this is a perfect 45 right here. But this is a sketching activity. You can see that it doesn't go all the way to the corner of the box that I drew. So I'm going to have to estimate and keep this at 90 and try to keep this at 45. That's not bad. That looks kind of like a 45-degree angle. That kind of looks like this. This is known as a reflection line. I'm going to put one of those in the corner of each of these 4 boxes. Look at how slanted this one is. This got a little wide on me. If I put this here, look where that falls. It's way off the corner. So I know that I don't want to be all the way to this corner. That won't be a 45, and that won't help us. We need to make it look like this corner is 45 degrees. So when you look at that, that's kind of a 45 degree, and I have to do it here. And I have to do it here. So if you look at that, you can see it's not bad, not bad. Okay, and now what I want you to do is, in the lower left-hand corner of each of the 4 boxes, you're going to label this. And this is where our front view is going to go. So I'm going to put an 1/8 of an inch line here, and I'm going to label this front view. Right above the front view is the top view. So in this box, you're going to have a top view drawing. Try to keep this lettering about an 1/8 of an inch high. If you go a little bit smaller or a little bit bigger, that's okay, but you wouldn't want this to be huge lettering. You're not going to have enough room in there to draw what we need to do. And so on this side, if this is the front view, this is the top view, this is my right hand, this is the right side, so this is the right side view. And we have to do that, 3 more times. So this here, this is the front view. This is the top view. And this is the right side view. If you can get your lettering nice and neat, it really makes a statement. It makes the drawing look so much better. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to put a little guideline, really light line. You don't want these to be super dark. I'm going to put another one here. and here. And while I'm doing these, I'm just going to continue right across. That kind of speeds it up a little. I'm trying to keep it parallel. Again, it's not perfect, but we want you to try to make an effort. Show us the effort. Okay, this is the front view. This is the right side view. You get better at this as you keep doing it, and then this is the top view. And then one last set to do. This is the front view. This is the right side view. And this is the top view. Okay. When you look at it, it's not bad. I mean, I can clean it up a little bit, and if something is real light, if I want to darken in some of this reflection line so it shows a little more, now is the time to kind of get it all looking nice and neat, and you can do that on your drawing. Okay. So the first object that we're going to draw today is this, I guess we could call it a V block. It's wouldn't be considered a very difficult drawing, but it'll give us some of the basics and reinforce some of the things that we've already discussed. So if I look at this object and I look at the paper that we've laid out, this drawing, this V block, is going to be in these three boxes here: top view, front view, right side view, and then our reflection line. If you remember, we talked about how do we determine the front view of the object, and we have some rules on how you do that. And we said one of the rules was kind of the normal resting position of the object. So if I'm looking at this object, again, it's a nothing object, so I could have it rest this way, or this way, or this way, but for sake of working on it and how I want to position it, I'm going to call this the front view. Another way that we could look at it is the longest view. So this is pretty long, this is not, okay? This is pretty long. So again, I'm going to go back to here. Then we talked about the view with the most detail. Well, if you look at this, I really don't see much in here. I wouldn't want to call this my front view. I don't see much but this rectangle. So again, I'm going to go with this as my front view. One more thing, which view gives me the best right side to draw? Well, if you look at this object, don't see much there, and I don't see much there. So that's not really a major factor in this one. I'm going to call this the front view, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a rectangle that will hold this object. Now remember, we've talked about proportion. So I'm basically going to, in this box where it says front view, I'm going to draw a rectangle to use to draw this object. And so this is where we start to use our sketching techniques that you learned earlier. And I'm going to use this side of the edge of the paper to try to keep the lines parallel. And I actually want to really use as big of this, much of this space as I can within reason. You can see I'm using sketch lines, and I'm trying to keep this space even as I sketch down. And now I'm just going to connect them like this. So when you look, I've pretty much used this space right here. Please don't draw a little tiny rectangle in this area. It's going to be too hard to see things. So this is what right now is my front view. And you might be saying to yourself, wait a minute though, I see a V in there. I see something else in there. And you're right, but we're not going to draw that yet. We're going to do something called blocking in a view, which means we are going to get 3 rectangles on our piece of paper that will house this object, that will fit this object. So we know something about the top view because of the front view. We know that whatever the length, and this is length, whatever the length of the front view is, the length of the top view is always the same. So whatever this length is, this length up here has to be. So I can take something called projection lines and transfer those lines up, but I want to use them as construction lines, very, very light. I might be drawing mine a little darker just so that you can see it better on camera. But if you take a look, I've lined up my view, and whatever the length of this is, the length of the top view is. And that's true for any object that you pick. It doesn't matter what the object is. If I take a key and I say, this is the front view of the key right here, well, whatever the length is from here to my fingernail, it's exactly the same in the top view. That's standard for any object. Now let's look at the right side view. We know something about the right side view. We know that whatever the height of the front view is, the height of the right side view is always the same. Look at this object. Whatever the height is from here to here, this is the right side view. If this is my height, watch the distance between my fingers. It doesn't change. So whatever the height of the front view is, the height of the right side is always the same. So I can project these lines over using construction lines, really light, just like this. Okay? All right. Now, I really can't go any further because from this view right here, you don't know if that is a sheet of paper, if it goes back. It could easily be just a sheet of paper like this right here. And if you look at this sheet of paper in one view, you don't know how far back this piece of paper goes. You need more information. So in this case, you actually have to see the object or be told how far back the object goes. So when we look at this, now we can get an idea of the depth of this object. And again, we're trying to sketch for proportion. So it looks fairly even. It might be a little deeper than it is tall. So I'm going to start in this upper box that says top view, because really this is what we're looking at right here. This is the front and this is the top. We're just turning it, drawing it on a flat sheet of paper, and I want to draw a rectangle that's going to fit that. So we're going to have something. I don't want to be right on this line, so I'm going to be down just a little bit. So I have something that looks like that. Looks pretty similar. Maybe I could have made this just a tad wider, and if you're like, uh-oh, I made a mistake. Well, because we used construction lines, really light lines, you can just go ahead and make that a little bit wider. And again, sketching techniques. I'm trying to keep this parallel to the top edge of the piece of paper. Your lines should be nice and straight here. They shouldn't be slanted. If they are, fix it. So now I have a block for the top view and a block for the front view. But now I have the right side view. Well, remember we have this thing called a reflection line. And there's another rule in drafting. Whatever the depth of the top view is, whatever the distance is between my fingers here, the depth of the right side view is always the same. So if you look at my fingers right here, And here's the depth of the top view. Now watch what happens when I turn to the right side. The distance between my fingers doesn't change. If you use this reflection line properly, it will give you the exact depth down here. So watch, I'm going to take these construction lines and I'm going to transfer them over. And as soon as it hits this 45, I'm going to bring it straight down. Same thing here. Now the hard part is trying to keep everything parallel, trying to keep this distance the same. So with your eye, you kind of have to look and adjust, because if you don't, you're going to get something kind of slanted over here. So your space, it doesn't have to be perfect, but your space here should be, fairly even. This should be a fairly parallel line. And now when you look, I have 3 rectangles on my piece of paper. I'm going to do another thing. I'm going to clean it up a little bit so that those rectangles show. Okay? So that you can see the rectangles right here. Okay? All that we've drawn right now, is a box. We've just drawn a rectangle. So if I take this, and I'm just going to take a sheet of paper, this is all that we've done right now. We drew a front view. And then we brought it back on an angle. I'm doing this just to show you. You're not expected to do this part. And this is what we have. This is the front view. And so if you look at that, this is what the front view looks like. Again, this is very quick, but I just want to show you. So there's the front view. Here's the top view. Look at the top view. It doesn't look like anything too impressive. It's just another rectangle. It's the same length. And then here's the right side view. So all that I've drawn here is the top, front, and right side of this 3D object. But that's not what this looks like. This has a notch in it. This has a V in it. So we have to go back now on our paper, and we have to, this is like a puzzle. What we have to do is we have to say, okay, I see this V in the front view. And so you kind of look and you estimate where center is. I'm looking at this point here. And I just take this now, and I'm like, okay, I have something that comes there, something that comes from this corner here. And again, you can adjust it. If you don't like something, erase it. It's okay. So I have something that kind of looks like an envelope. But when you look at this, there's nothing right here. This is cut away. So this line, because we drew it lightly, we can just erase it. And now what we have is a really good representation of the front view of this object. So let's look at the top of this. When you look at the top, I see the rectangle, but there's more to it than this. There's this crease right here, this line. So where does this line come from? Well, let's flip it and take a look. The line comes right from that V. So if this is the V right here, I can project a line upwards right here, just like that. And now when you look, I have the line, I have the line. This part is this part here, and this part is this part. One more thing now. I look at the right side view and I don't see anything. But I know something is there because there's this big V. How do I know what to do over here on this right side view? How do I know what the object looks like? I can't see anything. You have to depend on your other views to give you information. So this view right here, this front view, tells us something about this view. It tells us that there's a notch in there. It tells us that there's a notch. But how do we know where to put the notch? That's actually kind of easy. depends on where the V is right here. So all we're going to do is we're going to project this line over, just like that. And when you look, that's where the notch would go. But the way I drew it as a solid line. If you cannot see the notch, but it's there, we have to show it. And in drafting, there's a certain type of line that we use, and it's called a hidden line. And a hidden line is kind of neat. It's just like a 1/8 inch dash with a 1/16 space. And it just keeps repeating itself like this. Just like that. Anytime a person who knows or understands how to read drawings sees a line like this, they know that this is something that you can't see from this right side view, but something's going on. And when they look at the other views, they can tell, oh, this is a front view. Here's the notch. There's the notch coming through. Here the line shows. Here the line shows. So actually, this is a pretty complete drawing now. This is a multi-view drawing, also known as an orthographic. What I want to do to finish this up is I want to clean it up. These lines are too light. I don't need this line here. It gets really confusing, so I'm going to erase that, and I'm going to darken in the lines that I want to show. So I'm going to turn my construction lines into visible lines. So I just darken them in. You can turn your paper. This is where you can straighten things out. Just try to make the drawing look as neat as you can. Again, don't expect you to be an expert, but we want to see the effort. Something like that for the front view. Here's the top view. And I'm just darkening in all these lines. Just like that. And the line down the middle. And there's the top view. And now the right side view. I don't even have to erase these lines that I transferred down. I just don't want them to be in the way. I don't want them to confuse the drawing. I want to keep the drawing neat and clean, because drawings are a form of communication. So we're not trying to trick anybody. It's graphic communication. We want to be able to see it. If you do something like this, all of a sudden that gets confusing. Where does it end? If the drawing ends here, then these don't make sense. So erase them if you went too dark. And you want your view to pop. So now I have my top view, my front view, and my right side view, and that dash is showing the hidden line that you cannot see from just looking through here. So we need all three views to help us work on something. So that is a pretty basic orthographic drawing. And again, the reason we have orthographic drawings, because if we were building this, we could put math on there. We know the length. Each view gives two pieces of information. The front view tells you the length and the height of an object. The top view duplicates one. It gives you the length, and then it gives you another piece of information, the depth. And then the right side view duplicates one. It gives you the height, just like the front view, and it gives you the depth, just like the top view. So that drawing is complete. Okay, that drawing is complete. Let's look at like another one. This one can be a little more challenging if we look. Let's see. So let's look at this object right here. Okay. If we look at this object and you look from here, you really don't know too much about it, right? You really don't know what's going on, but look at this. I can take this and I can put my pencil there. So something is happening right there. And then look at this. I can put my pencil right through it. So there's something happening there. So this may not be the best view for a front view because it's not giving us a lot of information. So if I want to determine the front view of this object, I'm going to look at it. Oh, there's a hole, there's a notch, and again, normal resting position of this, it's just an object that Mr. Liggett and I 3D printed. So we don't really have a normal resting position, but we're going to choose what we think is the best possible view to start with our drawing. And that's going to be this view right here. We are going to call this the front view of the drawing. So in the second set of 4 boxes, we are going to draw a rectangle that will fit this object in proportion. So we're going to scale it down. Remember before how we started? We had 3 boxes to start with. That's how we're going to do this one. So we're going to start by drawing a rectangle, trying to keep my lines parallel. Okay, something like this. Again, once you have this view, you might be saying, yeah, but there's a notch in there. Should we draw the notch now? Not yet. We're going to do something called blocking in the view. We're going to get the 3 rectangles on here that if we snapped them together would be a completed block that we could cut this out of. And now we know something about the view. We know that whatever the length of the front view is, the length of the top view is the same. So I can take this and transfer it up. Notice it's right in line with it. It has to be. These have to line up. If you draw it over here, it's not correct. It has to line up. Now look at this. We know something about the height of the front view and the height of the right side view. They're both the same. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to transfer it over. Like that. Now we need some more information. I actually can't go any further on this drawing if I didn't have this to look at or I didn't have some type of math. Let's start with this. Let's start with this little notch right here. We want to look at it and we want to look at proportion. We've talked about proportion. I can tell that this notch doesn't come all the way half. It's kind of, sitting up maybe 1/3, or it's 1/3 down because there's 1, 2, and then 3. So when I do this little notch, I'm going to make a little mark here. I'm going to make a little mark here. And I'm going to look at it for a second to see if it looks right. And I feel like this one's a little smaller, so I'm going to adjust it. It's okay to erase. That's why we're using these construction lines. Now, I know that this doesn't come all the way down to the middle. It just comes part way. Again, this is a sketch, so it doesn't have to be exact, but we're trying to get it in proportion. Okay, so something like this. And now when I look at this top part is gone. This line is gone. So because we did it lightly, I can erase this. And now that view looks pretty good. And just by doing that, I learned something about the top view. I can transfer these lines up. I actually didn't finish blocking in my view. Let me finish blocking in my view. Let me go back, and before I put these in, and that's my fault, I need to get the other rectangles that are going to fit this. So we have our one rectangle. We need to know how far back it goes. And you can see this goes back pretty far. So I'm going to start. I don't want to be right on this line, so I'm going to start here, and I'm going to go back pretty far on this object to right here. Okay, so I should have finished blocking in my view before I started cutting away at the other parts. And now I need to finish this view. Well, I know the height, but I don't know how far back this goes. That's where this reflection line comes in. I bring it over as neat as I can, trying to keep this parallel. And as soon as it hits that reflection line, that 45-degree line, I go straight down like that. And this one I'm coming a long way, so it's real easy to get crooked. So I'm really trying to watch this edge of the paper to keep it parallel. Again, if it's off a little bit, that's okay, but you don't want it to be on a big slant. And now if you look, I have my 3 rectangles. Okay? So now I kind of jumped the gun before. So now we have it. And now you take a look. And now I guess I can go back and put those notches in. Would have it been wrong if I did the notches and transferred them up? No. It's just nice to start with 3 things, 3 rectangles that are going to make up this shape. So here we go. I can still see my line, so I'm going to speed it up a little bit. Get rid of this. And so now I've just drawn that space. When you flip this over to the top, you get even more information. So look at, you can see that these bumps go all the way back. Well, here's this line already drawn. I'm going to take this one and transfer it all the way up. And the same with this side. It goes all the way back. So I now see these, but there's something else that I notice in there. I didn't see it from here, but you actually notice this circle. There's a circle in here, right? So that circle looks like it's centered in this part. And since we don't have any math on here telling us exactly the distance to measure, we're just going to use our eye and make a, an educated guess on this. Now, remember, you can find corner of an object from going from corner to corner to find center. So I'm going to go from center to center here, or corner to corner, excuse me. And I'm thinking that's about center of this space right here. That little X is center of the space. Now we're going to use a line in here, and it's known as a center line. And a center line designates just what it says, the center of an object. And in this case, it looks like a little minus sign right in the middle of the X. And then this transfers down like this. And then we're going to turn that minus sign into a plus sign, just like this. And we're going to transfer this down and transfer this up. There's a little center line, and we have a circle, right? We have a circle. So I'm going to estimate, and I know you learned the piece of paper method of transferring the circle around, and you could use that method. I'm going to just sketch a circle and see how I can do using each of these sections. And the good thing is that I can always adjust it or erase it, and the paper method is an excellent way to get things accurate. So this isn't too bad. It's not the best circle, but it's not bad. So now I've drawn this circle in the top view. Do you see the circle from the front view? No, you don't see it. If you look straight down, if I hold it a little bit on an angle, you're like, I can see it. But you have to remember, when we're drawing something in multi-view, we're looking right down on it. What they would say is like the bird's eye view, flying right over it. How do I know where this circle is right here? Well, the only way I know is by getting the circle from up here. So if there's the circle showing here, and I need to see where to put the circle here, well, look at, if you can see my pencil, there's one side of the circle, there's the other side of the circle. So I can just transfer lines down from my circle really lightly. And then right here, real lightly. Okay? And I'm even going to transfer down this center line. And I'm just going to put it like this. Just part of it, because it's only like half the circle. Okay? Now, you can't see the circle. So how do you show something that you can't see? What type of line do you draw? And I know you're all saying right now, you draw a hidden line, which is like a 1/8 inch space or line with a 1/16 space. just like that. And now, that's what this circle would look like in this view. If we cut this in half, you would see a line and a line where the circle is. Okay? So now we have to take a look at the right side view. So here's the right side view. I don't see anything. So you think, man, I'm done. It's already there. But actually, there's some stuff going on in there that if we're building this part, we need to know about it. So for example, there is a line right here that we can carry across. Right there. You don't see the line, but it's there. So how do you show something that you can't see? What type of line? And again, I know you're saying hidden line. So right now you're doing something like this. Okay? And now, like that took care of the line, but there's still a circle in here. There's a hole in here, right? There's a hole that's cut. How are we going to figure out where the hole goes here? Well, do you remember how we transferred things over? We can transfer this over right here, and the edge of the circle here, and as soon as it hits that 45-degree reflection line, we can bring it straight down. Now, can you see the circle? No. But we know that this is the circle because you can just follow it up. There it is. You can follow it over. Is the circle up here? No, the circle isn't. So the circle is only in this lower area right here. So I'm going to make that a hidden line. And that is what this would look like. This is the top hidden line. Right here where my pencil is that line. And the circle only goes up to this part right here where it's notched out. So now I have to kind of clean up the drawing. It seems like there's lines everywhere. So this gets all erased here. These lines get erased. That's kind of the biggest problem that I see is that people don't clean up the lines that they don't need. And it makes the drawing really confusing. And when we sit down and we grade these, if we see lines everywhere, we don't know what you want us to grade, what we want to see. So you only have the lines that are necessary. And look at, these lines are dark, these lines are light. They shouldn't be. Right now, we're going to turn all of this into a visible line so that we can make it stand out. Remember, drafting, drawing, whether it's on a computer, whether it's by hand, it's a form of communication. So we're not trying to confuse anybody. We want to get rid of lines we don't need. We want to darken lines we want to show. So even this, see how that gets confusing? I'm just going to erase that. And I want to see a nice, clean drawing. Okay, and one more. Do you see how these kind of pop? And if they're too dark, erase some of your lines. And now this one, I'm going to darken it in. Again, this is something that people forget to do, and yet it makes all the difference in the world as far as communication. I can see it. This is what we want to be able to see. And then this center line can actually stay because it just kind of tells somebody that's where the center of the drawing is. In fact, I can put the center line over here because look, I can transfer it over, and as soon as it hits the 45, the reflection line, I can come straight down, and because that's the center of the circle, I could do something like that. And so that is the second drawing. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but if you're starting to understand what you're looking at, here's the front view. You don't see the circle, but it's there. We got the information from the circle from the top view. We transferred those lines down, but we can't see them, so we drew them as hidden lines. In the right side view, we couldn't see anything at all other than this rectangle, but we knew from the front view that there was a notch, and we transferred that notch over, and that became a hidden line. Just like we transferred the circle over. We can't see it, but we know from the top view that it's there. We know that these lines are here, right where the circle is, but they show as hidden lines. And so now this is a multi-view drawing or an orthographic drawing of this object. And this makes it easier to build. That's drawing number 2. Okay, we are going to start the third drawing now. And this third drawing, if you can take a look at it, it's kind of a unique shape, has some neat characteristics. And for this one, I'm just going to pick what I want to be the front view. We're not going to go through all the rules in our check sheet, but you know, longest view, view with most detail, normal resting position, and what gives you the best right side, or how we come about our decision on the front view. And for this one, we are going to call this the front view of the object. So basically, we're just going to draw a rectangle that will fit this shape. All we're worried about right now is just a rectangle, just like we've been doing, so that we can box in the views. Okay, so there is something that's going to hold the front view. Now we know, and you should know this part by now, we transfer the lines up, project them up, projection lines. We're using very, very light lines because a lot of this is going to get erased. And we can project lines over. Okay. And now we need another piece of information. We need to know the depth of the object. And you can tell this is quite a bit wider, deeper than it is tall. So knowing that in the top view, since this is going to be the front and this is going to be the top, I'm going to sketch a rectangle that will house the top view right here. Okay. Now that I have the depth, I know about my right side view. I can transfer the line over, and as soon as it hits the reflection line, again, try to transfer this over, keeping it parallel. As soon as it hits my reflection line, I bring it straight down. The hard part on this is not to go on an angle, but just to keep it very straight, so this stays as parallel as possible. And then right here, I bring this over, and as soon as it hits that reflection line, I come straight down. And so now I have 3 rectangles on my paper. I'm going to clean those up a little so it's not confusing, so that you can actually see the rectangles. And there they are. Okay. And now we can look at this. We've done what's called blocking in the view. We've basically grabbed a piece of material that will fit this object. And now we have to sketch what we see in the front view. So let's take this just from a basic shape. If you look at this and you look right here, this is basically an L. Your eye will bring this line forward and this line forward. So all I'm concerned about right now is this L shape. So if I look and I kind of block it in or sketch it in, I'm going to do something that looks like this. Okay? So again, I know there's something going on here, but we're just trying to bring the line forward. And now you can see this whole corner, this whole chunk right here is gone. So let's get rid of that. By doing that, we learn some information about the other view. When I look now, I have the right side view right here. Well, how do I know where this is? How do I know the height of this? Well, it comes right from this line right here. So I transfer this over, just like that. Everything just kind of lines up. And now that line is this line. And I'll erase that so it's a little easier to see. Okay? And now this part is this part. Okay? Now let's look at the top view. If I look at the top view, I have some information as well. I have this corner right here is this corner. I can take this and transfer this right up. Every point comes up. So this corner comes up and it creates that line, and that's what I just drew. So you could see now we have this whole part is this part, and this big surface area is this big surface area. We just haven't put the notch in there yet because we need some information. So we're going to look at this top view, and we are going to just sketch this notch. Just like this. Trying to keep my lines parallel to each other so they're nice and straight, not slanting in. And now when you look, you can see there's no line right here. So I'm going to take that and erase it. So now if you look at this, and you know what, I'm a little out of proportion. I'm looking at how wide this is and how wide this is. I might adjust that a little bit. And again, it's not a big deal. I'll just bring it in a little. I did it very lightly. I'll do something like that, and I think I like the look of that better. So now, if you see this shape right here, that's this shape, okay? Now, I'm going to go back to this front and try to figure out where to put these lines coming down. Well, if I look at my top view, this corner is this corner. And so I just bring this line straight down, and it shows just like that. And this line comes straight down. That's this one right here. Comes straight down, and it looks just like this. And if you take a look at this, this is actually the front view of this object. Because remember, we're not drawing it 3D. So your eye is bringing everything forward. So here you can see this part is right here. This part is right here, and this part is here. Now we have to figure out what's going on right here. There's something going on in this section. So all that I have to do, I'm going to be transferring lines over from the top. And I go right from this point. I hit my reflection line. I come straight down like that. And what that just told me is where to put my hidden line for this notch. And so a hidden line is a 1/8 inch dash with a 1/16 space. And now I have that line drawn. Okay? And believe it or not, this object is done. I just have to clean it up a little bit, turn my construction lines into visible lines. So I'm just going to go back over and darken this in. Try to be as neat as I can. And this front view. It's like this. And darken it in. And now just my top view to go. Try to keep everything neat and parallel when it applies. So you can see these are really becoming much darker, much easier to see. And everything that we want to show is darkened in. Again, that tends to be the biggest thing that I see when I'm looking at student drawings. They don't darken in the lines that they want to show. You can see how these three views, they kind of pop. They're much different than the lines I transferred over. Very important that they're visible lines, and even this line is visible as far as how dark it is. It's still called a hidden line, but it's made with a nice dark stroke of my pencil. So here are the views. Here is the front view. Here is the top view. Here is the right side view. And that hidden line is coming from the notch. So drawing number 3 is done. Now let's go on to drawing number 4 and finish this up. Drawing number 4 is this guy right here. Take a look at this thing. Okay, looks kind of cool. It's got this half circle cut out of the bottom. All right, so again, we could go through the whole checklist of finding the front view, the longest view, the view with the most detail, its normal resting position, and whichever view gives you the best right side. But again, I'm just going to pick this for you, and I want this to be considered the front view. Okay, so this is our front view. It doesn't matter because they're both the same on this. First thing I'm going to do is block in the view. So I'm going to make a rectangle that will fit this. And I'm just going to take this and do something like this. Just a nice, don't make it super small because you're not going to have enough room to work. So make these rectangles good size. Kind of fill the box that you broke into 4s, just like I did here. So there is going to be the front view. And we know something about the top view. We know that it has to be the same length. So I'm going to project these lines up. You should be really good at this now, this part. And I'm going to project these lines over just like this. I now need more information. I know that this is the same height, that the front and the right side are the same height, and the front and the top are the same length. But I don't know how wide it is. What is the depth of this? So I need to look at it. And you would need more information. So we're just kind of doing this proportion. We're going to look at this and we're going to just kind of give a little guess here. Okay. So now I have this depth on here. Again, this is just the rectangle to fit it. Now we're going to transfer these lines over. And as soon as they hit the 45, they come down. Just like that. And now I have my 3 rectangles. So all we've done right now is made a box. Top, front, and right side. I'm going to clean it up so it's just a little easier to see the rectangles. Just like that. Okay? And now I'm ready to start kind of cutting away at this, at what I see. I'm going to start at the front view here. And I can see this whole section is removed. So I want to draw these columns here. So I'm going to sketch here and sketch here. And I'm going to try to look at the proportion. Looks like all of these are about the same. So I'm going to same distance or same thickness. So I'm going to do something like this. Okay. And I'm going to get rid of this middle. Because when you look at it, it's gone. It's gone. So when I look at that, that looks pretty good. I see that. Maybe I'm a little tall, but that's okay. Now I want to get this half circle in there. Half circle looks like it's right in the center of this. So looks like it's somewhere, I'm going to put a little center line here. Looks like it's somewhere in here. So I'm just going to sketch, play around with trying to get a nice half circle. Doesn't have to be perfect. And again, the good thing is, if you're not happy with it, you can erase it and try it again. These are actually kind of fun to do. And these are called orthographic drawings, and another name is multi-view, because there's more than one view. There's a top view, a front view, and a right side view. Okay? All right. So now I have that, and I can erase this bottom, and that's kind of what I see right here. All right, that gives me some information. Well, now that I made these little points here, I can do something with those points. Remember, any place there's a point, I can transfer the line up. Excuse me, and I can transfer this line up. Just like that. And now I have the lines here. Okay. The next thing I need to do is I need to look at this and say, well, there's some squares here. So again, we're just going to estimate where these squares are. If we wanted this to be precise, perfect, we would put math on here and say, oh, make each one of these a 1/2 inch by a 1/2 inch. But we don't need to do that in a sketch. But when you look, you can see 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So everything's there. Again, it's not 3D, so your eye brings everything up. So you don't realize that this is going down. You don't realize that this part is actually set low. Okay? Let's go to the right side view. We can do something with the right side view. It's a little bit confusing with the right side view. If we look at this, there's a notch in here. And this notch is, you know, in line with these. So we can take these right here and transfer them over. And wherever they hit the 45, the reflection line, we can bring it down. Just like this. Okay? Now, from this view, we don't know how far this notch goes down. We don't know if it's just down a little bit. Is it just a line? You can't really tell from this view. But when you flip it to the right side, all of a sudden you can see how deep the notch is. So I have my 2 prongs here. I'm just going to look at this and again, I'm going to estimate where the notch is. And I'm going to do something like this. And so now when you look, we have something that looks like this. It has to be darkened in, but you can see the 2 notches. We had to just pick how deep it goes. And now we're almost done with this drawing. But look at this. If you look in this top view, you don't know that there's like a shape cut out of the bottom. But look at my pencil can go in between there. How do I show that there's actually this notch cut out of the object from the top view? How do I know where to put it? Well, I go right to the circle down here to the edge of the circle and I transfer it up. Just like this. So that's one line here, one line here. Now when you look at this, you can't see it, so how do you show a line that can't be seen from this view? With a dashed line. So it's like a 1/8 inch dash with a 1/16 space. And the same thing here. Just like that. So that is actually the 2 lines. If you were to look at the edge, that is the 2 lines of this object running across here. But you can't see them, so we had to draw them. They're there, you just can't see them. Now this gets a little different here. When we look here, we can actually transfer the top of this. We have some lines here that we can bring over. Look at this line right here. How do we know where that line is? Well, it's coming right from this corner, right here. Just like that. But you can't see it. So because you can't see it, it's that 1/8 inch dash with a 1/16 space, and that's called a hidden line. And there's actually one more hidden line. Can you see the notch from this view? Do you know that there's a notch right here? Can't see it from this view, but there's the notch right there. If you were to take this point and carry it over, there would be a hidden line coming from right here. And we can't see it from this view, so we're just going to do this. And so now you have all the views, but there's even one more hidden line. This thing is just full of these hidden lines. When you take a look at this object right here, you can't really tell that there's another one behind it, but there's a hidden line there. And that hidden line comes from right here. So we transfer this back, and there's a hidden line here. Don't worry if this drawing doesn't come out perfectly for you. That's okay. I'm just looking at you're going to give it a try. And if you can start to see where some of these lines are coming from, that's really good. And if not, it will come in time. Don't worry. It's just like the more you practice it, like anything, the better you get at it. The last thing that we have to do is darken in our object. So we can take this and we can go through, and anything that we want to show, we can darken up. Turn these into what's called visible lines. So this one, just take your time with, and you will come up with a drawing that looks like this. In fact, what's cool is this is the answer. This is it right here. Okay, and then I just have to do this top one, top view, darken it in. A lot of stuff here. And again, I know that this one might be a little bit of a challenge. That's totally okay. Just give it a try and it'll be fine. Okay? And then if you have some lines that are confusing, you can always kind of just erase them like that, so that the view itself pops. And if you want to put in, you know, a center line here, that's fine. If you didn't, that's okay. Just halfway. Center line designates like the center of an object. And so that's what we're showing there. So this is the last of the drawings. Okay, so we've done a total of 4 drawings. We've done this one, and we've done this one, and we've done our purple one, and we've done this red one. And they're all pretty cool. So hopefully that makes sense to you, and we will talk about it in class.